So today I want to talk about effective communication because it's one of the most important skills for generating income, and in this social media era where everyone is on their phones. And so if you can become an effective communicator, you will literally stand out from the crowd. And I've been a teacher for the last 10 years, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what it means to communicate effectively. And this came up because a few months ago, I had a student, one of my economics students, I'm a teacher, by the way. One of my economics students came up to me and said, I actually don't like economics. I don't like the subject. I'm not going to ever study it again in the future. But I'm in the class because you're the one teaching it. And I'm like, well, why? Why are you still in the class if this subject is so difficult for you to learn? And the student said, well, it's because of your stories. It's because of all the things that really don't have anything to do with economics that we go over in class. And I feel like I'm vicariously learning from the stories that you tell. And that really got me thinking into, well, what business am I actually in? What business is the education business? What business is the content creation business? What business is any business that has to do with communication? And so, after a lot of reflection and thinking, I really think I'm in the business of creating memories. And okay, well, what does this have to do with effective communication? Well, if I can communicate effectively, if you can communicate effectively, then it's like, hey, if you want a certain emotion in the audience and you want them to feel sad or angry or frustrated, well, you can communicate that with an effective story. And so today I want to go over, I have seven tips to become an effective communicator, as I am learning to become an effective communicator. And these tips are not from me. I got these tips from analyzing the likes of Jordan Peterson, Dan Koh, Alex Hormozi, Tony Robbins, and kind of grabbing all the common themes that they have in their communication so I can be more intentional and more aware as I create these videos, as I teach my classes, as I coach clients, as I talk one-on-one with people, to be able to adopt the principles that I am about to go over will certainly make me a more effective communicator. And you might be wondering, well, what is an effective communicator? Well, an effective communicator isn't just there to be heard. An effective communicator, in the context of content creation, in the context of education, in the context of coaching, an effective communicator influences action, changes thinking, and it really unravels the mind, or helps the audience unravel the mind themselves and then rebuild it back up with this new set of beliefs, this new set of values, and this new set of habits, behaviors. And that's what really I believe effective communication can do. So let's get into it. The first tip really is to know what you're talking about. And so you'll notice that of all the people I've mentioned above, all of them speak from experience and ingrained knowledge. And the reason why we do that is because doing so will allow you to engage the part of your mind that has emotion. And you can't put emotion into a speech if you're just reading from a script word for word, unless you have it perfectly memorized and you're remembering certain experiences as you're going through the parts of the speech. But very rarely can people actually do that. And so it is in our collective best interest for people to speak from experience because it's more persuasive and it is their truth. Right? If you speak from your experience, it is your truth. And there is nothing wrong ever with telling your truth. Okay? Otherwise, with the rise of AI, now I have students telling AI to write them a speech. and they give that speech in class, and it's painfully obvious what they've done because they're not speaking from here. They're not even speaking from here. They're just reading. And it is plainly obvious that what they're talking about is not theirs. Okay. Number 2, all of these people speak in parables. They speak in stories. And so your job is to capture stories in your everyday life. And I was listening to Vin, a communications coach, and he says, look for the moments in your day, in your week, where you feel a certain emotion. Doesn't matter what the emotion is, but those are the moments that you capture, that you write down, that can become stories for what you want to talk about in the future. And these stories can apply when you're speaking on a grander topic. And an example of this is Alex Hormozy. He's just really good at talking about the results of what he's done and what's worked for him and what hasn't worked for him as a very matter of fact way of speaking, which gives people comfort because he is telling his truth. Tip number 3, address the next logical concern. And so if you look at a lot of Jordan Peterson's talks, he speaks on a certain topic and then he addresses the counter arguments to that topic. It's almost like, well, if you think A is B, then next thing you know, the next thing that should come up is, hey, but what about C? And then he addresses that right away. And so Ko writes using assumptive questioning. And so, for example, if I ask you the question, if I made the statement to you and I said, chocolate flavored ice cream is the best ice cream flavor in the world, you'd be like, okay, well, what's the next logical question? Well, why? Right? And so chocolate flavored ice cream is the best ice cream flavor in the world because, and then I give reasons. And so that's an example of addressing the next logical concern, right? And then the next logical concern after that might be, oh, what about vanilla? Right? What about some other flavors, right? What other criteria are there? And so it makes sense then to talk about those next logical concerns. So you answer that right away after your first point, or second point, or third point. Number 4, this is something that I need to work on, is to use words that are precise, because precise words give you solid ground to stand on when you are speaking. So some words are more precise and vivid than others. For example, if you are angry, well, you might not be angry, you might be enraged, or you might be annoyed, right? And so anger has this very huge spectrum. You can be angry and keep it to yourself, or you could be angry and lash out in chaotic ways that hurt other people, right? And so there's a spectrum that makes the word angry imprecise in describing many, many experiences in which people feel angry when they are more likely, when other words such as enraged or annoyed might more accurately describe their experience. And when you're able to more accurately describe your experience, you do so not only for yourself, but for others as well. So understanding the connotation of these words and using them to precisely communicate meaning is the sign of thoughtful articulation. And that's what you want, really, is you want to be able to accurately describe the human experience. That's what makes it interesting, is you're using words that are vivid, that gives imagery, right? Like if I tell you I am enraged, that is different than saying I am angry, or I am mad, or I'm annoyed, right? When all of those words could be used to describe the same experience. Number 5, pause. Speak slowly. And remove filler words like oh, right? Right? And you'll notice all of these speakers are very comfortable doing that, all of the speakers I mentioned. Not only does it add more instant authority, and it does, but that's not the reason why you want to pause. The reason why you want to pause is because you want to think before you speak. Because you owe it to the listener to think before you speak. They are paying attention. You are delivering value. And if you pause before you speak, it shows that you are putting forethought, you're putting time and effort into crafting your sentence, into communicating your message, which signals to the audience that what you have to say may be worth listening to. Number 6, you want to answer important questions when you speak. You want to talk about important things, important to you or to the person you are talking to. In your writing or speaking, you really want to answer questions that matter to at least one person. A speech, for example, on the meaning and purpose of life will naturally be more engaging than a speech on the best ice cream flavor. And the reason is because the stakes are higher. Well, what do I mean by that? It doesn't really matter for me to know what the best ice cream flavor is. It's not relevant to me whatsoever. It might be relevant to an ice cream maker or an ice cream store or shop, but it is not relevant to me. Meanwhile, the purpose and meaning of life is a hugely relevant topic to the world, right? And so not knowing the meaning and purpose of life, or one rendition or one perspective on it, might actually affect my life, right? This person might actually have something important to say. And so I should pay attention given the gravity, the weight of this topic. And so the 7th tip, the final tip, is to practice. And so this is when you think about, well, I've heard these last 6 tips on effective communication. What does that mean for me? Well, it means practice. And so how do you practice effectively? Well, you better bring the attention of a learner and the attitude of a learner to every speaking or writing opportunity. That's for one. You better practice all the points above, or one at a time. You better document your practice, because as humans, we thrive when we see progress. And then if you do so consistently, daily, you'll notice how much of a different communicator you would have become a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And I'm willing to bet that your income will increase as a result of you working on these skills. Why? Because these skills are central to marketing, to creating content, to copywriting, to creating any kind of educational experience, any kind of product description. Communication is the underlying skill that is present in every single interaction, because it is required for interaction.